by scratching the surface, you get a terrible shock. It's such a, well, it's a heinous crime. People are so shocked by what...
Something happened inside the palace that was never supposed to happen this way. And within moments, the future of the monarchy appeared to change forever. William was no longer simply waiting for the crown. He was suddenly being pushed toward it. And across the room, Camilla was reportedly left visibly shaken as a formal constitutional decision appeared to place William at the very center of royal authority. But why was this happening now? What had changed behind closed doors? And why did this decision seem to catch Camilla completely off guard? What should have been a carefully controlled constitutional moment quickly became something far more personal. According to this dramatic account, the Privy Council had formally recognized William's immediate move into the role of king, meaning the transfer of authority was no longer a distant possibility. It was happening now. And what happened next could change the royal family's future forever. William did not celebrate. Instead, he stood quietly, gripping the edge of the table as he looked toward Charles. The weight of the moment seemed to reach him all at once. He had spent his entire life preparing for the crown, but preparation could never truly explain what it felt like to watch his father give up the role he had waited decades to hold. Charles remained silent. He did not object. He did not ask the officials to stop. He simply placed his pen beside the signed documents and watched his son absorb the responsibility now placed on his shoulders. That single gesture revealed something important. This had not happened against Charles's wishes. He had already allowed the process to move forward. Camilla, however, seemed to understand the consequences only after it was too late. She reached for a chair, struggling to remain steady, before aides moved quickly to help her from the room. The announcement had shocked her, but the deeper surprise was hidden inside the decision itself. William's authority was beginning immediately. There would be no long period of adjustment.
No comfortable transition.
No extra year for everyone to prepare. The palace had already crossed the line. William watched Camilla leave and then turned back toward his father. In that instant, he understood that the family had entered a completely different chapter. There was now a clear dividing line between everything that had existed before that announcement and everything that would come afterward. The crown was his, but there was no victory in his expression. There was sadness. Charles had spent most of his life waiting for the chance to become king. Now that chapter was ending much sooner than anyone had expected. For William, the crown represented duty finally becoming reality. For Charles, it represented something he had to surrender. And for Camilla, it meant losing a level of influence she had believed would remain secure. 3 people, 3 different kinds of loss, and one decision that could not be undone. After the others left, William remained with Charles. The silence between them felt heavier than the announcement itself. William knew this day would come eventually. Every heir knows that one day the crown will pass to them. But knowing something intellectually is very different from standing in front of your father as that moment becomes real. The formal powers connected to the crown were now shifting toward William. That meant the change was not simply a new title. The palace itself would begin responding to him differently. William finally asked his father whether he was certain. Charles did not answer immediately. He looked down at the papers and then back at his son. His message was simple. The moment was no longer about what either of them personally wanted. It was about stability, responsibility, and ending an uncertainty that had been growing inside the monarchy. Charles believed that placing the next generation firmly at the center could protect the institution from a longer and more painful struggle. William listened. He understood what his father was saying, but the emotional cost remained. Meanwhile, Camilla was recovering privately. At first, she refused to discuss what had happened. She insisted that she only needed time to compose herself. But when an aide confirmed that William's authority was effective immediately, the full meaning became impossible to ignore. Her ceremonial role could change. Her access could change. Her influence inside the royal household could change. And the man who now controlled those decisions was William. The transition had clearly been prepared before the public announcement. Briefing papers were being redirected. Household decisions were moving toward William's office. Formal approvals were being prepared under his authority. William was unsettled by how far the preparations had already gone. He had not known the exact timetable. Charles had kept the final details extremely limited, even from people close to him. Then Camilla noticed something that made the entire situation even more complicated. A preparatory document connected to the transition carried Charles's signature from several days earlier. She stared at the date. If that signature was genuine within this dramatized scenario, then the process had not begun that morning. It had started earlier. Something had happened before the council meeting. Something serious enough to convince Charles that the transition could no longer be delayed. And that earlier moment led back to Windsor. For weeks, tension had been building around royal duties, household decisions, ceremonial precedents, and William's eventual role. These issues may have looked small from the outside, but inside the palace they represented something much larger. They represented power. Who would decide? Who would approve? Who would stand at the center of the institution? Charles had wanted to avoid a sudden restructuring. He believed a slower transition might protect the family from an open conflict. He wanted unity, but delaying the decision only allowed the disagreement to grow. 6 days before the declaration, Camilla challenged the proposed plan during a private Windsor meeting. She argued that William should not receive immediate control over senior appointments and responsibilities. She wanted Charles to delay the transfer for another year. Her argument was based on concern. She feared Charles might not be emotionally prepared to surrender so much authority. Charles listened. He did not immediately respond. Then William was summoned into the discussion. He could sense that this was no longer about scheduling. The disagreement had become personal. Camilla told him that the monarchy was moving too quickly around his future. William responded carefully. He had never demanded a particular timetable, and he did not want to defend a decision that he had not made. Then he turned toward Charles. He asked his father to make the choice himself. No protection. No excuses. No blaming William. That moment stayed with Charles. After William left, Camilla continued to argue that once the transfer began, restoring the previous balance would be almost impossible. Charles listened. Then he closed the folder. His answer was quiet but final. The transition could no longer be treated as a family arrangement. That night, the formal process began. The documents were prepared. The council mechanism was activated. And the following morning, the machinery of succession was already moving. Camilla later realized what the earlier signature meant. The final decision had been made before the announcement, and William understood that she had tried to delay his elevation. That knowledge made their next meeting almost impossible to avoid. When William eventually entered the private room where Camilla was recovering, there were no crowds and no ceremony, just the two of them. Neither raised their voice. That made the encounter even more intense. William could have sent an aide, but he wanted to handle the conversation himself. Camilla had already been told that her ceremonial position would be reviewed under his authority. She asked him directly whether he believed she had tried to block him from becoming king. William paused. He told her that was not what troubled him most. What troubled him was that she had tried to stand between Charles and a decision Charles believed was necessary. Camilla pushed back. She argued that protecting Charles from an irreversible choice was not betrayal. Someone had to ask whether he understood what surrendering the crown would mean. William remained controlled. Then his anger finally appeared. He told her that protecting someone was one thing. Controlling when they were allowed to let go was another. The words changed the room. Camilla then revealed another concern. She had wondered whether Catherine's growing importance inside the monarchy had influenced the speed of the transition. William looked genuinely surprised. He rejected the idea. Catherine had not known the final date. She had not organized the timetable. She had not secretly pressured Charles. For Camilla, that was a difficult realization. The people she had suspected were not behind the decision. Charles was. William made one final point before leaving. The final authority had not belonged to him. It had not belonged to Catherine. And it had not belonged to the Privy Council alone. Charles had made the decisive choice. That changed everything. Because now there was no one else to blame. The man Camilla believed would never make such a decision without her had already made it. And Charles had remained silent throughout the announcement. He watched William become king. He watched Camilla collapse. He allowed everyone else to focus on procedures and succession. But behind all of it was a simpler truth. He had chosen this. Charles had waited decades to become king. He had carried expectations for most of his life. Surrendering the role by choice was therefore not an easy decision, but he believed uncertainty could become more damaging than change. He also understood something else. If William appeared to have engineered his father's departure, the new reign could begin under suspicion. So Charles kept the final timetable away from his son as well. He wanted William to inherit authority without being accused of forcing the transition. When Camilla later asked why she had not been told the final date, Charles gave her an answer she did not expect. He said he trusted her. That was exactly why he had kept the final details from her. He knew she would fight to protect him. He knew she would try to delay a decision he had already accepted. And Charles could not allow affection to become another reason to postpone what he believed had to happen. By the end of the day, the palace was already changing. No second announcement was necessary. The change appeared in small details. A briefing that once went to Charles now went to William. A meeting was redirected. A secretary waited for William's approval. An appointment required his authorization. To the public, these details might have seemed meaningless. Inside the palace, they were everything. They showed where authority now rested. Camilla experienced the shift personally. She arrived for a scheduled briefing and discovered that it had been removed from her diary. Her secretary explained that the matter now required William's direct approval. She looked at the empty space on the page. Then she closed the diary. For someone who had spent years inside the center of royal life, a missing meeting could say more than a public announcement. Charles noticed what was happening to her. He understood her pain, but he refused to interfere. He knew that if he stepped back into decision-making immediately, William's authority would be weakened before the new reign had even properly begun. That created a painful situation. Charles could support Camilla personally, but he could not restore the authority she had lost institutionally. William, however, surprised everyone with one instruction. He told senior staff that Camilla was not to be humiliated. Her personal team should not be removed recklessly. Nobody should treat the transition as permission for revenge. The new king wanted the transfer of power to be firm, but not cruel. When Camilla heard about the instruction, she was surprised. She had expected punishment. Instead, William had protected her dignity, while still allowing the institutional changes to continue. For the first time, she began to question whether she had misunderstood his intentions. Then another message arrived. William wanted to see her again. This time there would be no advisors, no officials, no documents, only a private conversation. Camilla expected another argument about authority. Instead, William spoke about Charles. He admitted that hearing himself called king had not felt like victory. It felt like watching part of his father disappear. That confession changed the atmosphere. William had spent his whole life preparing for the crown, but no preparation could have shown him what it would feel like to inherit authority through his father's surrender. Camilla finally stopped defending her actions. She explained that her resistance had come from fear. She was afraid Charles would surrender the role because duty demanded it, and only later realize how much of himself had disappeared with it. She had watched him wait for kingship for decades. The thought of seeing him release it suddenly terrified her. William listened. Then he gave her an assurance she had not expected. He had no intention of erasing her place beside Charles. Her official influence would change because the structure of the monarchy had changed. But her personal relationship with Charles would not be treated as something royal authority could simply remove. William wanted the new order to be strong without becoming cruel. For the first time, Camilla admitted that she may have crossed a line. What had started as an attempt to protect Charles had slowly become resistance to a future she personally feared. That admission did not erase what happened, but it changed the meaning of it. Inside the palace, the family was finally beginning to lower its defenses. Outside, the country was only beginning to understand what had happened. William's name dominated the headlines. Charles's decision became the subject of intense discussion. Camilla's collapse became one of the most talked about images of the transition. But beneath the public reaction was something deeper. Britain was watching one royal era close. The change was not simply about a new title. It was about one generation making room for another. Palace messaging emphasized continuity, stability, and respect for Charles. The language was careful. The transition was complete, even if the family was still emotionally catching up. Charles watched the coverage only briefly. He heard commentators discuss his decision and saw the story growing beyond his control. Then he turned off the broadcast. Instead of asking what people were saying about him, he asked for an update on William's first official schedule. His reign had ended. His concern for his son had not. William found the public celebration difficult to absorb. People were cheering his name, but he knew what had been sacrificed to place him there. Catherine understood his hesitation. She reminded him that accepting the crown did not mean pretending the day had been painless. He could honor Charles's sacrifice while still accepting his responsibility. Outside the palace, crowds gathered. The public watched as a new chapter appeared to begin. But behind the celebration was a family still processing what had happened. Charles had surrendered the crown. Camilla had lost influence she once believed was secure. William had become king far sooner than expected. And now the question was no longer whether the transition would happen. It was what William would do with the authority he had inherited. His first message made the answer clear. He would not present the change as a victory over his father. He spoke about service, continuity, gratitude, and responsibility. The crown was not a prize. It was a duty. Charles had made that possible by refusing to compete with the new reign. He stepped away from sovereign decision-making and allowed William to lead. Before William's first major appearance, father and son met privately. Charles adjusted a small detail on William's clothing, stepped back, and reminded him that he no longer needed permission to lead. William did not respond with a speech. He simply embraced his father. For one moment, the crown meant nothing. They were simply father and son. Later, Camilla sat with Charles privately. She admitted that her collapse had not been only about losing influence. The deeper pain came from realizing that the life they knew had ended in a single decision. Charles took her hand. He reminded her that losing the crown did not mean losing their life together. That answer gave her something no title could provide: certainty. William kept his promise. Camilla's institutional influence changed, but she was not humiliated or treated as an enemy. Catherine remained beside the new king as the royal structure adjusted. Charles willingly moved away from the center. The transfer was complete, but it had not been built on conquest. It had come through surrender, responsibility, and acceptance. For William, destiny had finally become responsibility. For Charles, kingship had ended through a choice he believed was necessary. For Camilla, influence had given way to acceptance. The crown changed hands through shock, tears, fear, and resistance. Yet the family remained standing. And perhaps that was the most important part of the entire story. Because royal history is often remembered through titles, ceremonies, and official documents. But behind every transition are people. People who have to say goodbye to one version of their lives before they can accept another. William had become king. Charles had stepped aside. Camilla had faced a future she had tried to delay. And the monarchy had entered a new chapter. The real test, however, would not be the announcement. It would be everything that came afterward. Could William lead without allowing personal conflict to shape the institution? Could Charles truly step back after waiting so long to become king? Could Camilla accept a reduced role without allowing resentment to divide the family? Those questions would matter far more than the ceremony itself, because the hardest part of a transition is not changing the title. It is learning how to live with everything that title changes. And as the palace doors closed behind the people who had defined the previous era, one truth remained. The monarchy had moved forward. There was no turning back. William now carried the crown. Charles carried the memory of the role he had surrendered. And Camilla carried the emotional cost of discovering that even the closest people to the throne cannot stop time. One generation had finally stepped aside. Another had taken its place. And the future of the royal family would now depend on what they chose to do with the new reality.